Okay, now raspberries, this looks like what I call a tee box. Or I call it a box tee. And they're gonna have wires just like this. You put a big post on each end of it. You got your wire right here. You take your pliers, take your wire cutter, you're gonna draw, after you drill a hole, and I think, yeah, these are about a foot wide, foot long. After you hammer them by hammer with a nail into the outer post, that pressure is gonna attach, it's gonna pull it. Usually you wanna put a horseshoe nail like you've done to make sure they're secure, and wrap that wire. You're gonna crimp it right there like you do with chicken wire, electric wire, and just gonna wrap it around like a bow, like that, like it's a present, like a candy cane swirl. And that's how you use your pliers and your wire cutter to cut that in. After you draw that through, and make sure it's tight. I see this one's a little loose, and you don't really want them loose. You don't want them too tight, because when you do that, you will pull it out and you will bust your top tee. But you got to make sure there's an art to it. Make sure when you do
Here's a tight one right here. This one's tight.
Oh, there you go. That's great. Especially for the lower side, you want them tight, because they're going to hold in the heavy part. See, the lower it is, that's where more of the weight is, because you got more of that heavy stock on bottom. At the end of your season, what you're going to do, you're going to look for the brown stalks. Year, but let's go over to the other side and take a look at that, what you got going on. Hey, these are other raspberries, Farmer Tayber. And blueberries as well as raspberries do like shade. So it's okay that blueberries and raspberries do get shade. As long as they get about partial sun, at least half sun of the day, that's just fine for those types of fruits. And again, if they're already in your yard, leave them there. Don't take them out of your yard. You want this to be incorporated in your garden. This is fruit and produce. Now, Farmer Tayber, I see those brown barbs. You want to remove those. This is after harvest, right? You just picked all the raspberries, haven't you?
Yeah, I have the season's over, so I'm taking all the brown ones out. Let's see.
And your soil is gravel, and that means it's aerating the soil. A lot of oxygen's getting into your soil and your roots. It's easy to water. They don't like their roots soaked in water all day. They do like a more drier soil, again, more rocky soil, and that's what, again, bark does. It aerates the soil and makes sure it's acid, a kind of a higher acid soil, and that's what, again, the gravel does. So sand, gravel, rocks, a lot of beauty bark, that's what you want, that wood mulch for raspberries. Oh, yeah, just remove it. Now you're gonna go all the way down to the base. You're gonna clip that brown right there, about 2 inches from the bottom. Right, you don't want to go all the way from the bottom. Yeah, 2 to 3 inches, just like that. Make sure you remove the good barbs out of the way so you can see what you're doing. That's a young growth. That's a good plant. It's going to be green, the stalks you want to keep. This is completely brown. So Farmer Tayber, go ahead and clip this one for us. Oh, and sometimes they'll just break. And you could go ahead, look for some more dark brown stalks, clipping 2 to 3 inches high off the ground. Again, you don't want to clip all the way to the base, because that harms the roots. Those roots in raspberries like to stick up very high at the central base of the plant. They actually like to stick outside of the ground itself. So raspberries have like an exposed root, is what we call that. And you're going to notice you're going to have these green stalks left, just like so. And this is what we're going to do next, as Farmer Tayber's finishing to clip those up. You take these green stalks, these new healthy stalks, and you go underneath your wire. I like to go all the way to the bottom, and just like string, you're gonna pull up some of that wire. You're gonna bend that plant. Take your time, do it right. Pull it. They're very flexible at this point in time in September. They're extremely flexible, and you can go ahead and stick that in between all your wires right there that are on your border your box tee or your tee box. Make sure all those green stalks are inside those wires. You take some wire, you go ahead and take your wire cutter, like so. I would like to do it maybe 2 feet in length. This is one of the methods. And you're gonna take all those green barbs, and about middle, a little higher than middle way, you're gonna take that wire and you're gonna circle those barb plants, and you're gonna make a little tie off like this. And that's one way to do them, just like so, to your raspberries. And they're gonna span out. And this, at this point, oh, can I see one of those hand shears that you're using, Farmer Tayber? At this point, you're gonna clip about 1 foot off the top, but as to your level height. You don't wanna go any shorter than your height. So if you're 5 feet in height, you don't wanna go any farther than 5 feet. If you're 4 feet, hey, it's okay. You can go 4 feet, but no lower than your height. And you're gonna clip those tops just like so. And the raspberries need a lot of nutrients to survive the winter time. They're going to be winter time, it's going to be snow, freezing, and you want to make sure your raspberries have a good hibernation process, that during the winter time they're not going to die. Now, that they maintain all those nutrients into this plant to produce in raspberries next year instead of more leaves. And that's what happens. Again, they take all the nutrients when you don't clip the top, but also it just creates more leaves instead of healthy, nice, juicy raspberries the following year. Again, another method is you take some wire, and you can do shorter amounts, and you just maybe take 2 or 3 of these from the closest side you are. So if you have about 3 barbs from a raspberry plant this side, you're just gonna do the same thing, but this time you're gonna wrap it to your wire. So you're gonna go in a circle, but this way you're gonna tie using the wire itself. So you go ahead, and that's another method. But you don't do it with all the plants. You just do it from the plants, or that part of the raspberry that's on that side. So you'll grab 3 or 4 of those barbs on that side and attach it to the wire itself. And you can do that at every position of the wire. So go down here, grab some more wire, cut it with your wire, do about the same amount of width, and go ahead and wrap those raspberry stalks just like so around that other wire, like that, just like so. And that's another method of doing this. This is the method I like to use, but again, you're not doing a whole bunch of the plant. And so why I like that method, it frees up more of the raspberries, so when it comes to harvest time, you can pick them a lot easier. But the other method is a lot quicker. So if you're running out of time, you came home from work, that method is going to be a lot quicker. Again, what we want to do with those shears, Farmer Tayber, go ahead and clip these tops. He's doing it to his level of his head, which is the same as eye level. He can go lower though, to his eye level. And that's just fine, but you don't want to cut it lower than the top wire. You always want to leave about 3 or 4 inches up of the raspberry up on that top wire, because what happens when you don't, they're going to fall loose underneath the top wire, and they're going to hang over, and they're going to fall over, and it's going to break the barbs, and you're going to lose those raspberries due to the weight and with those barbs breaking. They can't handle a lot of weight, so when the raspberries are on, that's why you're making them sturdier, with making sure they're between that wire trellis and making sure they're tied to the wire itself. Because again, they're very delicate. They're not as sturdy as other plants. But remember, this is okay when they're young to bend them, pull them in, get them underneath. As long as you're not breaking them, they're gonna do fine. Even if they got a little bit of I would say a little bit of a crevice or a little bit of a bend in them, they're gonna heal, and they're gonna be just fine in the long run.